There's a lot of different equipment manufacturers basically just around in the fitness industry right now. You have really big people in the industry. You have like the known names like Hammer, Rogue, Sorinex. But what a lot of people have never really paid attention to is which of those companies are actually veteran owned. This video really came about as a result of a direct message conversation between me and Jeremiah Lighthouse over on Instagram. Jeremiah had reached out asking if I knew that certain companies were actually veteran owned. Veteran owned companies are something that's very important to both Jeremiah and myself, and we basically started a conversation, and part of that conversation was, have I ever thought about creating a video just highlighting veteran owned companies? For today's video, I'm going to be focusing on just 3 companies. There are tons of veteran-owned businesses out there, and if I miss them, please just comment down below and tell me which ones they are. So the first company I want to highlight is Surplus Strength. Surplus Strength is owned by Army veteran Jason Campbell. Jason Campbell enlisted shortly after 9/11 happened. Surplus Strength is one of those companies that has been highlighted a lot recently. Mainly what we're seeing right now is the UPS high and low system, which is his universal pulley system, high and low. It wasn't soon after graduating from his AIT that he was immediately shipped off for the initial push into Iraq in 2003. He completed 2 combat tours, OIF-1 and OIF-2, and as a result of just training and just regular military life grinding down on you in the Army, he was medically discharged in 2004, basically for knee issues. Having those knee issues, though, really motivated him towards getting into fitness and getting into intelligence style training. After he was medically discharged from the Army, he became a certified personal trainer and started putting himself back through college. He graduated with a bachelor's degree and became a project manager, working 5 years in the commercial construction area, as well as 5 years, he says 5-ish years, doing high-tech medical project management. Right around 2016, Jason had a really serious mountain biking accident. As he would call it, he made a really stupid oopsie and basically went ahead and face planted and caused all sorts of issues. Basically what he ended up with was 6 broken vertebrae, broke a rib, and he separated his shoulder, which obviously all terrible things, especially for someone that has fitness in mind. At the time, just to make things worse, at the time his wife was also 6 months pregnant. Now in 2016, Jason had a really high paying job, basically making 6 figures, doing the job that he loved to do, but he wasn't really able to focus on training others and getting them ready to just be ready for life, be stronger, faster, harder to kill, those things that I think all of us in the garage gym community really resonate with. But they made it through, they muscled through, Jason fully recovered, and now he owns Surplus Strength, which actually originally started as Jason and 2 of his business partners wanting to open up a facility together. So what they did was all 3 of them saved up their money, and when they went to get the lease on the building that they were gonna have this gym in, the lease fell through. Everything has a silver lining, and if you ask Jason, God's plan was different for him. So what he ended up doing, and when the lease fell through, was all 3 of them parted ways. He took that money that he had saved up and he basically built a super awesome space in his garage. Now, like all of us, when you're in the garage, you quickly find that you're very limited on space. One piece of equipment that I think most people also really appreciate is cable-based training. Normally what you see is like the single pulley looped over a pull-up bar, and you have handles on one end and a loading pin on the other. Unfortunately, Jason couldn't afford or find space for the large functional trainer units or the lat pull-down units that he wanted. So what he did was he actually welded together on the bed of his truck outside of his garage the first UPS system. After working on the design for a little while and perfecting the design, he decided that maybe this was something that he should take to market. So what he did is he worked with people like Adam over at Garage Gym Lab, sent them test units, and were able to further refine and develop that UPS system to make it what it is today. And of course now, today, we have the UPS high, the UPS low, and on the horizon for Surplus Strength, we have what's going to be in this space right behind me, which is the power racks, and the space over there, which is going to be the storage racks. No matter which way you look at it, Jason Campbell has a very interesting story. And just as a quick side note, when I first reached out to Jason and said that I was interested in making this video, I asked him for any photos he had of himself while he was in the Army, and he showed me this one. So just, it made it. The second company that I want to highlight is Beltfed Strength. Now, if you're a member of the Home Gym Discord, you probably already know who Beltfed Strength is. And if you're not a member of the Home Gym Discord, you should be. If you have questions on that, go ahead and comment down below and we can see if we can get more people accepted into that Discord group. Beltfed Strength is owned by a Marine Corps veteran named Christopher Yarber. Christopher with a K. He enlisted in the Marine Corps right around February 2001, so pre-9/11, and immediately upon joining the Marine Corps decided that he was going to be a combat engineer. After graduating from his technical training, he was assigned to the 2nd CEB, which if you know the Marine Corps, that means he was over at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina. Not long after getting there, he was assigned to a float, and that float was quickly canceled, and he made his way over to the first initial push into Iraq, where he might have met up with Jason Campbell from Surplus Strength. Who knows? During the initial invasion of Iraq, he was assigned to 1-2 Alpha Company, also known as Task Force Tarawa. During his second deployment, he was attached to 3-5 Kilo Company. And during that second deployment, he was actually assigned to the infantry battalion that was going in and making the initial push into Fallujah. After 2 combat tours with the Marine Corps, both of them to Iraq and one of them to Fallujah, he decided to separate from the Marine Corps and was honorably discharged. After being honorably discharged from the Marine Corps, he got a job with the Department of Corrections. He worked there for a short period of time before he got picked up by the Sheriff's Department to be a sheriff's deputy and qualified to be a pistol instructor as well as a first aid instructor for that Sheriff's Department. Like most veterans from that time period, he had been really kind of ignoring all of the mental and physical stresses that he had been under while he was in the Marine Corps as well as while he was a sheriff's deputy. And eventually things just kind of added up for Chris, and he decided that it was better for him to not do that job that was oftentimes triggering him and got a job doing kind of odds and ends handyman work. So what if you got a deck built, a fence built, raise a barn, that was the kind of work he decided to do. The reason he switched to it was because it was just a little bit less stressful and a little bit less bureaucratic than it tended to be in the Sheriff's Department and the Department of Corrections. During this time when he was doing the handyman work, he decided to start competing in strongman. There was a lot of reasons for this, and a lot of those reasons that he competes in strongman and trains strongman are the same reasons that resonate so deeply with me. He decided to actually compete in 2019, and when he was getting ready to compete, he started looking at different lifting belts. He looked at a couple companies and he didn't really like what he saw because he felt that he was paying a lot of money for something that didn't really bring that much value to him. So in 2019, he had his father-in-law who owned a leather goods store, and just as a quick side note, he had for a couple years made stuff for Coach and Louis Vuitton. So we're talking like a nice place. He gave Chris kind of the bare bones. And if you talk to Chris on the phone, it is the bare bones intro to leatherworking. As it turns out, it was one of those lost passions that Chris just never knew he had, and he started doing it real quick, started making belts for guys in his community, and very quickly decided that it was time to scale this up. Now, 2019 led to 2020, and in 2020, we had that whole pandemic thing hit us, and that severely interrupted the cash flow for Chris's family. Unfortunately, his wife basically permanently lost her job as a result of the pandemic, and because of that, rather than having her just, not work, he put her to work helping him make belts. Now, if you ask Chris, his wife is the artistic one of the couple. If you see any of the art on the Beltfed website, there's a really good chance that she's the one that did it. I like to think of the mermaid one the most. The mermaid one's actually a really funny story. I'll give you the wave tops, but basically, Chris had asked his wife to do a drawing, and it had something to do with like mermaids. Like it had to be like this old school kind of like Navy, mermaids. Tattoo, think like mermaid's tattoo, American traditional tattoos. What he didn't realize is that she was going to draw that. And that is one awesome logo. But Chris is an awesome guy and he's in a business that you should definitely support. So that's Beltfed Strength. Now he's been doing this business for about 18 months and he's feeding a family of 3 just off of this business. If you're in the market for a belt, please check it out down below. Click that website, look at what he has to offer. I promise you won't be disappointed in what you see there. The last company I want to talk about is UXO Supplements. UXO Supplements is owned by Army veterans John Klipstein and Douglas Petty. They launched their business with distribution on Veterans Day of 2015. Now, John and Doug's relationship goes all the way back to both of their first deployments to Iraq. Now, if you talk to John about Doug, John will say that Doug is basically a stud, and I would kind of agree because Doug is still an active duty Army Ranger. And Doug is kind of one of those freaks in nature, so I guess he had a full ride scholarship, and as a result of some scrapping that may have occurred during his high school or college days, that scholarship was quickly canceled and forced Doug into a position where he was more encouraged to join the Army. After joining the Army, Doug went to medic school, became a medic, and that's when he met John. John served 2 tours in Afghanistan. He was an artilleryman by trade, but he ended up serving most of his time in the Army as an infantry guy. His first pump was to FOB Salerno in 2009, which is in Afghanistan. And if you know anything about FOB Salerno, you'll also know that it was known as Rocket City, because they basically got rocketed about every single day. He was there for 14 months, and during that 14 months, he basically went on about 400 dismounted patrols. The whole reason that FOB existed was to be a presence in the area to dissuade and to monitor any sort of shipments that were coming in from Pakistan. Not that there were or were not any, but that's why they were there. In that 14 months and the 400-foot patrols, basically what would happen is they would go out on mission, they would come back in from mission, and then all of a sudden they get rocketed. And then they would have to go back out on mission to figure out where everything came from, and then they would come back in. And during that time, of course, everybody had supplements, but the Army leadership would do these health and wellness checks, where basically they would go in through your stuff. Those health and wellness checks and that confiscation of all of the sports supplements was basically the foundation of their relationship in the supplement industry. That's when they kind of decided that sports nutrition was the market that they wanted to get into. John would actually go as far as to order raw ingredients and mix them together in country. If you ask him, they tasted like absolute garbage, but at least he knew that he was getting exactly what he wanted rather than getting just some sort of proprietary blend out there. After returning from his first deployment, he had a very short period of time where he was actually home, and then he was spun right back up and kicked right back out the door, this time to FOB Apache. Now, in his first deployment, John had been just a member of a squad. Well, now, on his second deployment, with a little bit more rank on his sleeve, he was now a squad leader. So he was responsible for training all of the young guys, basically looking at himself from years prior. He was responsible for training those young guys in what to do when they make contact with the enemy, what to do when you got a man down. And he spun them up and he got them trained up with everything that they needed to be successful, as if they were on his first deployment. And pretty much nothing happened. Not to say that absolutely nothing happened, but when you go on your first deployment and in 14 months you do 400 dismount missions, you're stationed in Rocket City, and it's basically rainy hate content every day, where he was at the second time was nice and peachy. He was on mounted patrols, meaning he was in a vehicle. The first deployment he had been dismounted pretty much the entire time, and life was easy, life was safe. And he returned home from that deployment and exited the Army in 2015. Now, if you think back to where I started with UXO Supplements, he started their supplement company on Veterans Day of 2015, which meant that he already had pretty much started the company before he exited the Army. And that's actually true that John and Doug had started earlier in 2015. Obviously, when you're trying to do a startup, you don't have the capital or you don't have the cash flow to, I don't know, feed your family. So what he ended up doing was getting a job with Hewlett-Packard, and he worked with HP from 2015 all the way up to 2021. After leaving HP in 21, he was able to actually sustain his family with his salary that he was pulling from the company that he had started 6 years prior, which is amazing because if you think about the sports nutrition industry and the supplement industry specifically, it's a really tough market. In 2015, when John and Doug started UXO Supplements, they had $10,000 saved up between the two of them and a vision of what they wanted to bring to the sports nutrition industry. The whole premise behind what they were trying to do is they were going to bring their knowledge both of sports nutrition and of physical training to the general public, as well as catering specifically to the veteran community, law enforcement, and all the people that are out there to serve and protect us every single day. The whole goal of UXO Supplements is to provide the highest grade ingredients with the most transparency to you, the athlete, so that you can make your training better. There's a couple reasons that they wanted everything to be so transparent. One, because they don't have anything to hide, and two, People like me that are still active duty have to be very careful about what sports supplements that you take, because you might take something that could cause a false positive or some sort of hit on a urinalysis test. By having the supplement list or the ingredients list on your supplementation to be fully transparent, there's no proprietary blends or anything, what they allow us to do is basically look at what they're putting in it, and we can trust that when we take their supplements that we are getting exactly what they're saying and nothing more. And of course that ties into the veteran community in other ways as well. So one of the ways that the veteran community can fight off things like suicide or mental distress or physical distress is through physical training. A lot of us find that physical training is in fact a therapy, a way that you can bring all of your anger, your frustration to an arena where you're allowed to be aggressive and you're allowed to hit, throw things, and bang things. With those priorities in mind, one of the things that UXO also does is every single year they provide a donation to Mission 22, Disabled American Veterans, or DAV, as well as Home for Troops. So that's it. In this video we covered surplus strength. We talked about Jason Campbell, his time in the Army, and his subsequent recovery from a very major bike accident, only to come out on top, creating surplus strength. We talked about Beltfed Strength with Christopher Yarbus, his time in the Marine Corps and those injuries he sustained, took home, basically turned it all around and created a belt company to support his family during a worldwide pandemic. Lastly, we talked about UXO Strength, an active duty Army Ranger as well as a honorably discharged artilleryman that started UXO Supplements so that we can bring the best supplements to you, the athlete, and also be completely aware of what is in your pre-workout, your intra-workout, and all of your other sports supplementation needs. Now these are just 3, and like I said during the intro in the video, there are tons of other veteran-owned companies. If you know of any veteran-owned companies that you'd like me to highlight on this channel, go ahead and comment down below and let me know what those are. That's the end of this video, and I appreciate each and every single one of you that watched all the way to here. Remember, when it comes to your garage gym, you always want to keep it better, awesome, and of course, badass. And click below at the link so you can use those companies to outfit your gym with the best training equipment that you can get.